What if humanity had discovered an energy source powerful enough to end electricity bills forever, and chose not to use it? Imagine waking up in a world where the idea of a monthly electricity bill feels as outdated as a rotary phone. A world where energy is not something you worry about, budget for, or fear losing during a storm. A world where power flows endlessly, quietly, and almost freely, drawn from forces so fundamental to the universe that they have existed since the dawn of time. This is not science fiction. This is not fantasy. This is a story about an energy source humanity discovered, understood, and then, for complex reasons, never fully embraced. An energy source that, at least on paper, could have ended power bills forever. To understand how close we came, we need to travel back, not just through decades, but through layers of forgotten research, abandoned laboratories, bold visions, and silent failures. We need to listen to the echoes of scientists who believed they had unlocked something extraordinary, and to the quiet resistance of systems that were never designed for abundance. This is the story of energy that almost changed everything. At the heart of modern civilization lies a simple truth. Everything we do depends on energy. Light, heat, movement, communication, computation, food production, water purification, transportation. Every single one of these relies on a continuous flow of power. For most of human history, energy was local and visible. You burned wood and felt its heat. You fed animals and watched them work. You built windmills and saw the sails turn. Energy was tangible, limited, and deeply connected to effort. Then came the age of fossil fuels, and energy became invisible. Coal, oil, and gas were extracted far from where they were used. They were burned in massive, centralized facilities. The average person no longer saw the source of their power, only the result. A light switch, a warm room, a humming appliance. And along with this invisibility came dependency. Dependency on infrastructure, corporations, geopolitics, and prices that fluctuated beyond individual control. As cities grew and technology advanced, the demand for energy exploded. Power grids stretched across continents. Power plants grew larger and more complex. Bills became a permanent part of life. Paying for energy became as normal as breathing. Very few people questioned whether this was the only possible model. But some did. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a small group of inventors and physicists began exploring a radically different idea. What if energy didn't need to be generated in massive plants and sold by the kilowatt hour? What if energy could be drawn directly from the environment itself? Not harvested in the traditional sense, but accessed, tapped into, almost like tuning into a broadcast that was already there? One of the most famous figures associated with this idea was Nikola Tesla. Tesla understood something that most people, even today, struggle to fully grasp. The universe is not empty. Space is not a void. It is filled with fields, electric fields, magnetic fields, electromagnetic radiation. Energy is everywhere, constantly moving, constantly interacting. The challenge was not creating energy, but learning how to collect it efficiently. Tesla envisioned a world where energy could be transmitted wirelessly through the Earth itself. He believed the planet could act as a giant conductor, allowing power to be sent and received anywhere without cables, without fuel, and without centralized control. His experiments hinted that this was not only possible, but practical. Lights could be powered without wires. Motors could run seemingly from nothing. Energy appeared to come from the environment itself. To many investors and industrialists of the time, this was deeply unsettling. An energy system that anyone could access freely posed a fundamental problem. How do you meter it? How do you sell it? How do you control it? The economic structures built around scarcity simply did not work in a world of abundance. And so, quietly, funding dried up. Projects were abandoned. Research was shelved. Tesla died with many of his ideas unrealized, his notes scattered, his vision labeled impractical or impossible. But the story didn't end there. Throughout the 20th century, other researchers stumbled upon similar concepts, often independently. They noticed strange anomalies, devices that produced more energy than expected, systems that seemed to draw power from fluctuations in vacuum energy, zero-point energy, or ambient electromagnetic noise. These effects were usually small, fragile, and difficult to reproduce, but they were real enough to raise questions. Zero-point energy, in particular, became a source of fascination. According to quantum physics, even in a perfect vacuum at absolute zero temperature, energy still exists. Particles constantly flicker in and out of existence. Fields fluctuate. The vacuum is alive with activity. Theoretically, this energy is vast, enormous beyond comprehension. The problem is not its existence, but our inability to extract it in a useful way. Or so we were told. In laboratories around the world, experiments hinted that under certain conditions, energy could be coaxed from these fluctuations. Not created from nothing, but converted from one form to another. Critics argued that such systems violated the laws of thermodynamics. Supporters countered that the laws were being misunderstood or applied incorrectly based on incomplete models of reality. What made these debates especially intense was what was at stake. If even a fraction of this energy could be harnessed reliably, the implications would be staggering. Power generation would become decentralized. Homes could produce their own electricity. Remote regions could leapfrog infrastructure entirely. Energy poverty could vanish. Carbon emissions could plummet. Wars over resources could lose their meaning. And yes, power bills could disappear. But progress was slow. Funding was scarce. Mainstream academia often dismissed these ideas as fringe or pseudoscience. Without large-scale investment, prototypes remained crude. Results remained inconsistent. And without consistent results, it was easy to justify continued skepticism. At the same time, the existing energy system grew stronger. Fossil fuel companies became some of the most powerful entities in history. Power utilities built massive grids optimized for centralized generation. Entire economies became intertwined with energy sales. Jobs, pensions, governments, and geopolitical strategies all depended on the status quo. Change became not just a technical challenge, but a political and economic one. Fast forward to the late 20th and early 21st centuries, and a new wave of innovation emerged. Renewable energy sources like solar and wind began to mature. Unlike fossil fuels, they offered energy that was, at least in principle, free after installation. Sunlight and wind did not send invoices, yet even these systems were integrated into the old model. Panels fed power into grids. Utilities charged connection fees. Storage remained expensive. Bills shrank, but they did not vanish. Still, renewables proved something crucial. Abundance was possible. The sun delivers more energy to Earth in 1 hour than humanity uses in an entire year. The problem was never supply. It was capture, storage, and distribution. And here's where the almost forgotten energy source re-enters the story. Ambient energy harvesting, sometimes called energy scavenging, focuses on capturing small amounts of energy from the environment. Radio waves, thermal gradients, vibrations, electromagnetic noise. Individually, these sources seem insignificant, but combined and scaled with the right technology, they hint at something extraordinary. A background hum of energy that never turns off. In recent years, advances in materials science, nanotechnology, and power electronics have quietly revived these ideas. Ultra-efficient circuits can operate on microwatts. Metamaterials can manipulate electromagnetic fields in novel ways. Solid-state devices can convert tiny fluctuations into usable current. What once required bulky machinery can now fit on a chip. Imagine a home built with walls that subtly harvest energy from temperature differences between inside and outside. A roof that not only captures sunlight, but also ambient electromagnetic radiation. Floors that convert vibrations from footsteps into power. Devices that never need charging because they sip energy continuously from their surroundings. This is not speculation. Early versions of these technologies already exist. They power sensors, medical implants, and remote devices where batteries are impractical. The limitation is not physics, it is scale. Scaling up threatens the existing order. A world where devices power themselves undermines the concept of energy as a commodity. If your phone never needs to be charged, if your home produces more power than it consumes without fuel, if infrastructure becomes local and resilient, then centralized control weakens. Revenue models collapse. Regulatory frameworks become obsolete. This does not mean there is a secret conspiracy suppressing a magical device. Reality is more subtle and more human. Systems resist change because change is risky. Because billions of dollars are invested in existing infrastructure. Because institutions are slow. Because revolutionary technologies rarely arrive fully formed. They emerge messy, inefficient, and inconvenient before they become inevitable. And yet, history shows that inevitability always wins in the end. The printing press, electricity, the internet, each threatened powerful interests. Each faced resistance. Each eventually transformed the world so completely that it became impossible to imagine life without it. Energy abundance may follow the same path, slower than dreamers hoped, but faster than skeptics expect. The energy source that could have ended power bills forever may not arrive as a single dramatic invention. There may be no moment where lights flicker and the old grid shuts down. Instead, it may creep into our lives quietly. A device here, a system there, bills shrinking year by year, dependence fading gradually, until one day the idea of paying for basic energy feels strange. When that day comes, it will not just be a technological shift, it will be a psychological one. Scarcity has shaped human behavior for millennia. Abundance will require new ways of thinking, new economic models, new values, new definitions of progress. Energy is not just power, it is freedom. Freedom to create, to explore, to communicate, to live without constant fear of limitation. The closer we move toward energy abundance, the closer we move toward a world where human potential is less constrained by invisible meters and monthly statements. The story of the energy source that could have ended power bills forever is not a story of failure. It is a story of timing, of ideas ahead of their era, of a civilization slowly learning how to align its technology with the deeper truths of the universe it inhabits. The energy has always been there, all around us, waiting patiently. The real question was never whether it existed. The question was whether we were ready to accept what it would mean if we truly learned how to use it. And perhaps, quietly, step by step, we are getting closer.